more information suppressed. Elon Musk is not a homosexual, so he's going to make it less gay. It needs to be more gay.
So the first prompt is Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. Is Twitter better for it, worse off, or about the same?
I don't know if he can outdo Liz Truss, but man, is he trying. just tanking it as hard as he can, as quick as possible. I think he's finding out really quickly that, I'm paraphrasing, I'll say it, I'm stealing an idea that Sean on Twitter had, that he's finding out really fast that it wasn't a bunch of leftist, liberal, Marxist, SJWs or whatever they're calling us nowadays in control of Twitter. They found out that they had to do those things for advertisement dollars. Right. It turns out a lot of advertisers don't want to put their name on a platform with a bunch of like hate speech and white supremacists and like any extremists of all types. So he's finding out really quickly that the whole free speech thing that he wanted to champion, if you go too far with it, you lose money. And ultimately Twitter is a business. Not only that, even if you care about free speech, if you make it to where it's just and I'm not saying he wanted to do this, but if you make it to where it's just a political dumping ground where no one gets banned for anything and you can say anything you want, turns out the only people who like those areas, who like those spaces on the internet, are the people who want to push them as hard as possible. And when they do that, it drives other people out. So no matter what you do, free speech is going to be under attack by someone's definition on the internet. I think the Twitter badge fiasco was so ill thought out. You saw him working through it. He's posting through it in a pure midlife crisis. He's posting through it, negotiating with Stephen King about how much his new Twitter verification should cost. Is 20? Oh, sorry, you won't pay 20? Oh, it's going to be $8. Oh, now 80,000 people are doing the exact same thing that we said would happen, and that they're impersonating a bunch of other people, and the blue check actually doesn't mean anything anymore, but it was supposed to mean something. So we're going to add another little badge to show what the original blue check meant. No, we're not going to do that. Actually, we do need to do that. Actually, we're going to do like a hybrid system. Actually, no, we're going to bring back the original like official tag. I think it's a wonderful thing to witness. I don't think Twitter is going to die. I just think he's finding out very, very quickly that Twitter and a lot of social media sites run the way they run, not because of some grand leftist conspiracy, but because they're businesses that need to make money.
Well, just a moment before we started our debate here tonight, actually, Trump was reinstated on Twitter, so I think that's a...
Oh, wow, I didn't see that.
Let's go.
I saw that just literally 1 minute before we started our debate here, so that's a W. Whether you're a Trump supporter or not, personally, I find a lot of the things that Trump championed while he was in office abhorrent. I think he's a war criminal, but I think that at the end of the day, it's good to have him on Twitter because he is the former president. He's going to be running for president again, and that's a W. Now, as for the comments of Twitter being in absolute chaos right now by the opposing side here, that's just ludicrous. Twitter is having day by day the highest user averages that it's ever seen in history of being a company. And I think if you're running a business, that's a good thing to have high amounts of users. In addition to that, I mean, we've seen a few companies, a few institutions say, we're not going to use Twitter anymore. I saw CBS News today said that they're not going to be publishing on Twitter for the foreseeable future. I'm not crying over that. I don't think anyone's that upset over the fact that CBS News is leaving Twitter. I think, if anything, mainstream media leaving institutions such as Twitter, where we're trying to have conversations surrounding what is true and what is factual, is a good thing. Because if we've seen one thing over the past 5 years or so, it's that the mainstream media is the largest purveyor of mal, and disinformation on the internet. And that's something that our opponents are going to argue tonight is something that we should be trying to constrain on the internet. What they'll leave out is that the government and these big media institutions are the ones who are putting all that misinformation onto these various websites.
I think for me too, when I think about this kind of topic, is Twitter doesn't have to take itself super serious. This is the headquarters where you're getting all of the top information. For a lot of us, Twitter is just fun. It's fun to meme there. It's fun to goof off. It's just supposed to be a fun place where you can get more information and all that sort of thing. But I think in terms of, okay, advertisers aren't going to want to advertise if there's more free speech, they will adapt if people just stop folding to this stuff and stand up against this stuff. And in terms of actual white supremacy, racism, actual cases of these, those are bannable offenses. So I don't see how throttling people, throttling their reach and that sort of thing could ever be a productive thing on a platform like Twitter, because for the really egregious offenses, they're already going to be banned anyway. So in terms of whether Elon Musk has made Twitter a better place or if it will be, I think absolutely yes to a degree, but there still is some sort of deboosting he wants to do on certain tweets that I don't like. So I guess time will tell, but better than what it was, yes.
Elon Musk is single-handedly the biggest threat to our democracy. The idea that you could let little minions, peons, making under $30,000 a year without their blue check mark, tweet and say whatever they want against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden? No, that should not exist. When the New York Post posts factual information that Hunter Biden's laptop was real and had incriminating evidence before the election, and Twitter had the possibility of exposing that, but they suppressed it, thank God. Thank the Lord. We need more information suppressed. And Elon Musk is not a homosexual, so he's going to make it less gay. It needs to be more gay.
Wait, what?
We need to change our logo to a rainbow bird.
Mandatory pronouns in bio.
That's already mandatory. You obviously don't work there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Elon Musk, more like Elon Musk stank. P.U.
Yeah.
P.U. You smell awesome, Stardust. You smell
Thank
very delicious.
That is a very strange comment, but I appreciate it.
You do smell like
Yeah, thank you. So as far as whether Elon will change things, I'm going to be real with you guys. I didn't think that much was going to change. I still am not 100% convinced that it is. I think I'm more likely to believe that this is a little bit more of like a publicity stunt to get engagement up, to get more people using the website, which is not like it's not like a not smart idea. The dude's pretty good at marketing. It's kind of like, that's his thing. He makes really boring things really fascinating. But I guess what I would ask is, do we know for the long term that he's going to continue keeping up all of these changes, or is he going to eventually kind of just cede to advertisers? We saw when he first took over Twitter that he already issued a statement to advertisers saying, don't worry guys, it's not going to be a complete hellhole. And then just the other day, yesterday, he said, excuse you.
I got you.
Anyways, just don't be reading.
I can see your search history. It's disgusting.
You don't need to know about that. That's none of your business, okay? What I search for obsessively while I'm doing things every day is none of your business.
It's not necessarily legal, but okay.
It's minions, okay? Anyways.
Not doing what they're doing is not.
Rule 34 minions.
Rule 30. It is Rule 34 minions. But what I'm saying, yesterday.
Minion triple X parody.
Yesterday, Elon, he tweeted out, new Twitter policy is freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. Negative/hate tweets will be max deboosted and demonetized, so no ads or other revenue to Twitter. You won't find the tweet unless you specifically seek it out, which is no different from the rest of the internet. Note, this applies just to the individual tweet, not the whole account. So what this indicates to me, this is kind of a similar policy that YouTube has. YouTube doesn't outright deplatform somebody except in extreme cases. What this indicates to me is that he's kind of taking the same YouTube approach where demonetize, deboost. So I'm not too sure that that's what people were looking for, especially conservatives. I don't think conservatives were looking for that.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see how it goes, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
I think you made some great points there, and that's been some of my skepticism about everything personally, is I'm like, wait a minute, I need to see more of this unfold before I know more, but like you said, a lot of what he said sounds like what's already going on with big tech right now anyway.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it's just a publicity thing, really.
Yeah, it might be.
So I don't know if Elon Musk will increase freedom of speech or not. I guess we'll see. I will say I don't think that Musk can or should be trusted to practice what he preaches with respect to freedom of speech. He does have somewhat of a history of trying to shut down his own critics, and he's also connected to the national security state, which gives him a vested interest in enabling the U.S.'s surveillance machine, which is obviously itself a big threat to free speech. But more deeply, I just think, like, in principle, I don't think that we should have to rely on billionaires to protect freedom of speech. Having important sources of information being bought and sold by billionaires is not good for democracy or free speech. And I think we should protect free speech by removing our sources of information and discourse from the grip of rich elites, maybe by putting them under this public square through nationalization or something like that.
I think that's actually partially based on the fact that I don't think big tech, I don't think billionaires, I don't think the government, I don't think anybody needs to be telling us what information we should be allowed to look at and seek. Whether that's misinformation or not, where we should be able to decide what we believe and what we don't, and limiting any sort of information. You just can't trust a person or an organization to do that sort of thing. So I think as a whole, hey, go ahead and ban for threats, people actually trying to endanger other people, that sort of thing. But yeah, this whole misinformation, fact checking, all that kind of stuff, you just run into a lot of potential issues because whoever has power over that, there's room for corruption.
Well, that's not necessarily true because when they said that those rockets were shot from Russia and they're actually shot from Ukraine, that's Twitter's fault.
I mean, I think they corrected that pretty quickly. Like it
No, not
came out.
necessarily true, no,
They,
but
they
it's
came
pretty
out.
quickly.
So
Yeah,
you
they
think
came
they-
out.
I think
They
Byron Zelensky made about a video 21 hours after still claiming that.
Well,
It
yeah,
was-
but I think
and
the
then-
rest
and
of the
then
world, the rest.
overwhelmingly, ABC News, even after the fact, you can look at this headline, said, even though it was not a Ukraine missile, it was Russia's fault, overall.
Yeah, but I think majority of people know, especially like
Mm.
we know that okay,
I
this
just can't
was
believe y'all are
not.
defending the war in
This was
Ukraine.
not from Russia.
Can you be serious?
Wouldn't it be great if we had some way to suss out what actually happens? Like some
Well, it's
like
hard.
reputable
It's-
sources or something?
In
Yeah,
the
but I mean,
middle.
with all the people struggling right now, and like we're spending billions of dollars in Ukraine. I mean, don't you think that seems a little?
I think I agree with us spending that money in Ukraine. I think that Ukraine has the right to its own self-sovereignty, and I think that it's important for us to defend that.
This might be an opportunity for us to move to the next panel topic. In particular, Facebook's, or I'd say, does Facebook have a conservative or left-leaning bias? Or maybe no bias?
So according to studies that I saw, Facebook has similar shares of Democrats and Republicans using it, about 7 and 10 each. Nice. But according to internal discussions, Facebook removed strikes so that conservative pages weren't penalized for violations of misinformation policies. So it seems that I don't know that I can say that there's a bias, but it seems like, well, you're kind of like bending the rules for specific pages. Things like Breitbart, Diamond and Silk weren't penalized for like pretty clear misinformation. And I think if Facebook is relaxing its moderation in direct contrast to their policies on misinformation, there may be a bias problem. But I also assume this is due to the type of users that flock to Facebook as well, if it's more evenly split. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Facebook has a left-wing or a right-wing bias. I imagine it's ultimately going to come down to, Facebook and Twitter, these are platforms with a profit motive. They're going to censor and platform whoever it's most profitable to censor and whoever it's most profitable to platform and boost. And which side it happens to be more profitable to censor at the current historical moment is not the most interesting question to me, but I think whether you're on the left or the right, you should be concerned about Twitter and Facebook censoring the other side because it could just as easily switch who it's profitable to deplatform could very easily switch at any point in time.
Yeah, most of the data that's come out has shown that there's really no bias in terms of like engagement. Republicans seem to get as much or even slightly more engagement depending on what metrics you look at. Like Republican Congress people tend to get more engagement on their tweets and, if I'm not mistaken, also their Facebook posts. Most of the like top performing Facebook posts for any given period are going to be conservative. It's pretty hard to argue that they're suppressing conservatives when they seem to be getting a lot of reach there. Now, in terms of like suppressing conservatives because they ban conservatives slightly more often for like violating TOS, well, what if one side is just violating TOS more? I see a lot of left-wing people get banned for like hate speech, for targeted attacks. So plenty of left-wing people are getting justifiably banned for violating TOS. So I don't know what you would want to change about that.
I think there's a huge double standard because I know across social media in general, me as a woman, I can say men are awful, I hate men, they're the worst, and all that, and I would get away with it. But if a man were to say the same thing about women, then he would get banned for it. So there is a double standard across social media, and I think Facebook as well.
And I think oftentimes the terms of services can be slanted.
Well, there's a whole thriving manosphere on YouTube, so I think men are able to say things about women pretty openly for the most part.
Not as much as we as
an
women
example.
can
I will give
say.
that to you, Andrew Tate. I don't agree with him
As
being
soon as he
banned.
blew up.
But
Right.
yeah, but to say that there isn't this thriving manosphere online, I just don't think that's.
Well, that exists, but there's like subcultures of all kinds of weird stuff online that exists that probably do break the terms of services if they get big enough, like Andrew Tate. So that's why the problem is the big people like Donald Trump, just the fact that he's president of the United States can be deplatformed. That means that us peons, obviously they can take us like that. So I think that's like the bigger issue of why, although it might be more conservative, I think it's just because it benefits the people that run the tech and media companies are more liberal leaning. So of course the terms of services are
Right.
always going to benefit their ideologies.
Well, according again to internal reviews and stuff like that, it was shown that Facebook, if anything, is bending rules and not penalizing people who are right
Just look at
wing,
the amount
right?
of money that they donated during elections.
Yeah,
So that's
I
all
don't
they
really
do.
trust an internal review from Facebook when they're
Right.
the one who's
Okay.
doing that.
Right.
Well, just
And-
look at their donations.
But if you think about it, like anecdotally, like what are the big ticket items that face the most censorship today? Recently, it was COVID. Who are
Yeah.
the ones challenging the official COVID narrative? It was primarily conservative, some like hippie leftists, whatever. When it comes to the war in Ukraine, all these companies have literally crafted specific censorship outlines for the war in Ukraine. So if you challenge Joe Biden sending $80 billion to Nazis in Ukraine, then they'll censor you. I had my YouTube channel permanently demonetized because of that. And I'm still getting like hundreds of thousands of views every day, but they permanently demonetized my account. Many others have faced worse outcomes with that policy.
Yeah, that specific policy is they're removing content about Russia and Ukraine that violates a policy against denying, minimalizing, or trivializing well-documented violent events.
Good point. So
Yeah,
what
you can
about
still
So what about the situation that just took place in Poland with the missile that everyone, the mainstream media, all said was a Russian missile? And I went out on Twitter and I didn't go out on YouTube and say anything about it initially. I went on Twitter. And I said, I think it was a Ukrainian missile. I think if you look at the reverse azimuth, if you look at the missile itself, it's an S-300, it indicates that it was a Ukrainian missile. I didn't even go on YouTube and talk about that because I was fearful that they were going to say it was, denying a tragic incident. And then 24 hours later, they came out and said it was, in fact, a Ukrainian missile.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
it sounds like you can trust the mainstream media to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty quick correction to me.
A quick what?
A quick correction to me.
Well, what about Kramatorsk? What about Bucha? There's so many incidents throughout the war that they never corrected.
I mean, when it comes to things like that, like there are going to be details that are hazy because we're in the middle of a war, right? It's hard to confirm certain things.
But it's okay to ban people and ruin people's livelihoods over that?
I mean, if you're spreading stuff that is blatantly misinformation, then yeah.
But it's not.
According to their terms of service. Honestly,
How
if
do
you
you
were
define
to
misinformation?
if you were to ask
Right.
me, I think that there is some value to having spaces online that have a very little moderation, that have rampant free speech. But do I feel comfortable, me, a person, dictating a huge company that's caring about its bottom line, what they should and shouldn't moderate? No, I don't.
I mean,
In the lead up to the war in Iraq, all of you would have said that there was WMD in Iraq, and you would have supported social media companies censoring people who said that there were no WMD in Iraq. It's the same
it's
thing.
very funny that you said that. I was literally, before you cut me off, going to say I'm uncomfortable with the argument that social media platforms should be able to decide what is or isn't misinformation, because I have a feeling that at the time when the government was saying that there were weapons of mass
John
destruction and the whole entire mainstream media was saying that there were weapons of mass destruction, people who said that there weren't probably would have been the ones who got
Right.
banned for misinformation, and I don't
Right.
think that we should leave it up to those powers who've made those judgments in the past to decide what is or isn't appropriate to
And
say.
you know,
Yeah, I
Jon
agree.
Stewart said that exact same thing, that he would have been censored for the Daily Show if they were trying to do it today, because he did speak so adamantly against the war in the Middle East.
Is misinformation a problem at all?
There's no such thing.
No,
No
there,
such thing.
it's not. It's
So you
like we
can just say
survived
wrong-
on the
wait.
internet a long
I-
time.
I'm interested in what you mean by that.
How do you define it?
How you define it?
Yeah.
Well, you get the best answers you can for the people who know the most about it.
And who are those people?
The people who know the most about it. Now,
Okay.
I agree that is awful.
Are they the synthesizers of information?
Yeah.
Are they people who
Now, here's,
provide the information?
here's a question
Who are
I
they?
have. Mainstream media do lie. Yeah, they were wrong about the weapons in Iraq. They absolutely lie. What's the alternative? Is alternative media? Every problem you have with the mainstream media, the alternative media has, but way worse. Are they
the
biased?
peop- so the people who are
Alternative
saying
media
that
is
they were
way
no-
biased.
So
Hold on, you wanna-
any issue, you look at Russiagate, you look at COVID, the people who are right were worse than the people who got it wrong and lied about it for
if you give
profit?
me any fact whatsoever, any, I'm going to trust the mainstream media over the alternative media.
Okay.
And you laugh about that.
Well, no,
Yeah.
but Django,
I
You
do.
know, you laugh about that because alternative media is so great. There's so much like independent like review in alternative media. There's so much oversight. There's so many resources. 90% of alternative media is just taking
There
a
is
story.
independent. You let me- no, let
90%,
me-
90% of alternative media is just taking an actual story that the mainstream media has gotten, reading it back verbatim while splicing in like your narrative.
It's
That's
really
90%
not.
of
It's really
alternative
not.
media.
The check on independence and alternative media is audience review. If you're unpopular amongst the masses, no one's going to watch your show. No one's going to follow you on Twitter. If you are the mainstream media, it doesn't matter if people like you or hate you, because you're funded to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars by the largest mega corporations on the earth to keep lying your ass off and keep making sure that those corporations are making more money. That's the check.
What is
But
it
they
like?
still
Truth by
have
popularity?
they still have tons of viewers who will be experts in different things like medicine, who will like say, hey, there's something wrong with this. They'll have,
Like when
you know.
Joe Rogan called out Sanjay Gupta, and then Sanjay Gupta.
Well,
went
I
on-
mean, Sanjay Gupta did terribly in that, yeah, for sure. But no, when we're talking about like mainstream media, there are ways that the audience, because there's so many more eyes on mainstream media, there's that many more critics, and there will be people who write in and say, hey, you got this wrong. So
Well, I just think it's human instinct. I mean, I didn't go to journalism school. I did graduate from LSU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with a general studies degree with a communications minor, because so I'm not that dumb. My point is, when you look at, I forgot my point because I was saying all that stuff about.
just had to flex it, huh?
wait. No, but I'm saying in journalism school they teach you to not be biased. I think it's almost impossible inherently to not be biased.
Right.
Some sort of, even when you're the most fair, because this is why. And I'm a small media figure, even though Tucker Carlson is my biological father. That's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, even oftentimes I've spoken to influential people and they say, hey, Alex, this is off the record. And me as a nobody, as a comedian, as a professional idiot, I would keep that off the record as a journalist. And I'm sure people that are much more credentialed than I am do the same for other people. So I just think it's almost impossible for you to get the straight dope, as they say in the street, because any writer, left or right, is always going to put their spin on it.
Sure, yeah, there's always going to be some amount of it. You just try to have the least amount, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with respect to what Justin and Jackson were talking about, there was this conversation about whether or not the mainstream media is more trustworthy than the alternative media. I think that's going to depend on what alternative media source you're talking about, right? You could be talking about like Noam Chomsky or Democracy Now!, or you could be talking about like Alex Jones' show. And I think, whether or not alternative media is going to be more credible than certain mainstream sources is going to very much depend on what you're talking
I agree with
about.
that. Like how Democracy Now! Lied about the OPCW cover
Sure,
up
okay,
in
but
Syria.
Getting
And
to
So
then
alternative media
Alex
does lie.
Getting
Jones,
to the
Alex
point.
Jones got all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff correct.
Getting to
Hold on,
the-
just to be
I
clear,
agree.
your Alex Jones, is there anything he got wrong? And
Oh, yeah.
like, is there like some giant lawsuit, like a huge like $1 billion
Yeah, but
lawsuit?
so
he lost?
that discredits every other thing he was right about?
No,
Well, I
just
mean, I
like
think
just
it
like
was
just
pretty
like
big
what just like the
Yeah.
And he
WMDs
kept,
in
and he
Iraq
doubled
discredit
down
mainstream
on it.
media.
He didn't even
the-
double down. He tripled down
Does
on
the
that.
does the
Mainstream
claim
media.
that
Yeah,
Democracy
don't
So wait, Jingles, real quick, time out.
Alex,
You think
Alex-
that's the only thing the mainstream media has lied about is weapons of
hold
mass
on,
destruction?
no. But the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq doesn't prove that the mainstream media lies about everything. Doesn't prove that they're wrong about everything.
I would say
Just
the
like
majority of stuff
Alex
is.
Jones
They have to
lying
say
about
some real stuff
the
to make
Sandy
their lies
Hook.
seem
Sandy
real.
Hook, yeah. If you're gonna use one
Sandy-
example to like discredit the entire like media sphere that you're trying to discredit, that's
Yeah, but Alex Jones is right about a lot of stuff, so I mean, you
The
can
gay
say
frogs.
He was right about
the
WG
frogs are
Rat.
gay.
Well, you're a boy from where are you from again? Kentucky.
Yeah,
Democracy Now
the frogs are the
probably
reason I'm
also
gay.
is
Well,
correct
Kentucky.
about WMDs and
Astrid
Yeah,
family in the water.
I think
What the study showed.
I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt. And
Here in Texas, you use like little country gravy. Everything with country gravy said.
do you have a birth defect? Did your
Yeah.
mom drink while she was
She did
pregnant
a
with
little.
you?
She smokes weed. Referring to her, yeah.
Yeah, that's rough, dude. I'm sorry.
It was bad.
But anyways, I think that we don't have to debate about whether the mainstream media is more credible than the alternative media. I think the core of the debate is, well, the reason I brought up the mainstream media in the first place was that the whole mainstream media, as well as like the government, was saying that there were no weapons of mass destruction, or there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and when that's what the mainstream media is saying, that's what the government's saying, the people who disagree with that are going to be the ones who get flagged for misinformation.
Right.
And so I think that we shouldn't limit what opinions are allowed to be expressed to like which opinions echo the mainstream news or certain alternative news sources. I think we should let any opinions be heard and sort of, as you know, our friend Dave Rubin often says, battle it out in the marketplace of ideas or whatever.
I can agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that there definitely is value to having these spaces online in media that are, pretty much uncensored. But again, do I as an individual feel comfortable making those standards for companies that are trying to protect their bottom line? I'm not really sure that I do. So.
You got it. We'll jump to the next prompt. In particular, the recent banning of Andrew Tate and others of Sneeko on YouTube. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Sneeko did not deserve to be deplatformed whatsoever, and I think that the 3 strikes were done at once or like consecutively or something. So no, that's actually one of my biggest fears, not just as a content creator, but it sucks because like that is the catalog of all your stuff. Now you're like, oh, well, you should have it all backed up. Well, yeah, I mean, it's easier to say that like a hard drive with a bunch of random files, all the edited stuff, all this stuff, just countless hours of footage, and then you have that backed up near where you have the same every single, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos that you put all your time and effort in to entertain people to get very, few dollars and cents back, if you even get any whatsoever. And at any moment, your blood, sweat, and tears can literally be deleted off the internet like it never even existed.
Mm-hmm.
So that fear and that threat is real, and it happens every second of every day. So the fact that these companies can do that and you don't have any, basically legal recourse or any way to even get your old footage or content, which is, like I say, as the artiste in me, I lose that content, and that sucks, and then it's gone forever, and you're literally deleted from the internet. So it's modern day book burning. So yeah, no, Sneeko should not be deplatformed. It should only be deplatformed for serious stuff that would cause harm, to incite violence towards somebody, something very disgustingly bad. But to have a differing opinion than the mainstream media, or to say like, oh, I like this medicine for this illness, deplatform, that doesn't make sense.
I agree.
Good. Yeah, I mean, anybody who's familiar with me, probably not many of you, knows that I'm a democratic socialist, and as a democratic socialist, I believe that we should empower ordinary people to run society in their own interests and through their own decision making. And it's just flatly incompatible with that sort of ethos that we shouldn't have free speech and that ordinary people shouldn't be able to decide for themselves what to believe. I also just think like the classic, consequentialist arguments for free speech work. So like if you censor a belief, there are generally 3 possibilities. Firstly, if the censored belief turns out to be true, which is always possible, then censoring the view deprives us of our ability to exchange truth for error. Even if the censored view is false, there's always a possibility that there's some crumb of truth in what's being said, and we can learn valuable information by engaging with people who defend the false view. And even if the view is completely false and contains no crumb of truth, engaging with incorrect views still gives us a livelier impression of our own views, right? Like defending our views reminds us why we have them and what principles they stem from and so on. And so, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it when I see people getting banned or deplatformed from certain spaces like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube for making controversial political statements or having certain, factual judgments or normative judgments that the powers that be decide are unacceptable.
Here's a little olive branch. I actually sort of agree with you, Alex. I do think that you should be deplatformed only if you do something really, really egregious. So like calling for violence, calling for an insurrection. That one's sort of a joke, but not really. But seriously, I do think that it should be very, very. We should be very open in what we allow on these platforms. Unfortunately, it is a double-edged sword, and so like we can point the blame at YouTube and TikTok for censoring Sneeko and Andrew Tate, but the other edge of that sword is they wouldn't be where they are without those platforms. Those platforms are the reason that they're popular in the first place. They use that platform and the reach that it has and the ease of use and its access to hundreds of millions of people. That's what they use to get popular in the first place. So it's like that the hand fed them and it took them away. That shit sucks. I'm not going to deny it doesn't suck. But I don't see a solution to that other than like some sort of government regulation say that, hey, you have to continue providing this service, but you're going to have a lot less oversight over it. I agree that it sucks. I don't see a meaningful solution that's not going to step on the toes of business.
Rumble, that's the solution.
Go to a different platform?
Already different, yeah, YouTube alternative.
There are tons of alternative platforms for sure. I don't think Andrew Tate should have been banned. I don't see a reason for that. Sneeko, I think, said some sus stuff, but I don't know if it was like ban worthy. Yeah, it was a little bit sussy,
What was sussy about it, dude? Remember, I'm not even hating, dude.
It was like stuff about like Jewish people. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think that they deserve those bans. I do think that we actually have like a very significant cultural issue going on right now, and I see this on the far left and on the far right, where people are looking to use deplatforming as a weapon against people, and they will use it for petty personal stuff. And people who say it's only the far left doing it, I guarantee it is not. I've seen the far right explode with the deplatforming stuff. Even years ago, you can look at like YouTubers, popular YouTubers from years ago, they had their whole implosion because all of them were giving each other false strikes and falsely reporting each other.
I hate when the conservative side call for Ethan Klein to be deplatformed, even though I don't like Ethan Klein.
I've seen interest to it. Like
I know, but
everybody does it. There's a very serious,
the
issue.
deplatform Ethan Klein, I'm like, that's not.
Like one time, Destiny said that I was a paid Russian agent. And that's actually imprisonable, but he said I was a paid Russian agent, should be taken off the internet because of that. I personally think
I was still in the middle of what I was saying. Thanks, Jackson.
Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
Thank you also for cutting me off.
I don't like when the
Unbelievable.
slam dunk. Oh, since you're there.
Yeah, really appreciate it, both of you guys.
Sorry.
That's all I'm saying.
Sorry.
No,
You done?
No, I'm not done. Okay. Anyways, right. It's been weaponized for at least a decade, if not longer, and you'll see people go through waves of it. And so I really don't like that. But it's hard for me I would ask a question, do platforms have an obligation to justify every ban that they do? That is the question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, and on Stardust's point about how supporting or rejecting free speech isn't really exclusively to the left. It's worth noting that, according to polls from Gallup, about 43% of Republicans think that while Donald Trump was in office, said that the president should be able to close news outlets that were engaged in bad behavior, which seems like a pretty big affront to freedom of speech. So really, I don't think the issue should be framed as the right's fighting against the anti-free speech left. I think it should sort of be a bipartisan critique.
Well, by your guys' logic, saying that people who lie about major events and mass casualties, for example, should be held financially accountable, like Alex Jones, he's probably going to end up with like a $3 trillion fine. Shouldn't all the people who lied about Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Niger, all these countries, shouldn't they be held financially accountable? And if that means that they go out of business because of the gross amounts of fines that they'd have to be, then so be it.
Sure.
Well, what I would say is that I think that
Chase it.
Yeah, so I think that what everybody knew at the time was different, right? Now, if people got banned for saying the contrary then, they should definitely be compensated and unbanned because that's just wrong, right? So I could definitely see your point there.
Here's an olive branch. Would anyone disagree with this? No matter what side you're on, any social media platform needs to provide greater disclosure for content moderation actions. They need to tell you why you were banned, what tweet, what video, what section of the video, what sentence in a video. They need to tell you why you were banned.
And have access to your content, even if you get.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, maybe the ability to archive
Right, is that an
it.
olive branch? Is anyone going to disagree with that?
I think that, and even that, the ability to archive it, send it to, maybe it's part of the policy that you send all of the stuff that they had when you ban somebody.
That's for me, I mean, other than getting kicked off it, but then you have to go on these other alternative platforms. But for me, it's like the deletion of I know it's on their platform, but that's my content, and it's just gone if I didn't back it up. I think that is even one of the most egregious, whether it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on.
We'll do the hypothetical here. Let's say a huge account, Andrew Tate size, was promoting a cure for a deadly disease that did not work. And he was convincing hundreds, thousands of his followers to, instead of taking the medication that was saving their life, he started selling snake oil. And he was convincing a bunch of people to take medicine to
Do you care that people eat McDonald's?
But McDonald's doesn't advertise them as.
It is actually food. It actually makes a way more impact on your health.
Yeah, let me finish that hypothetical.
That's everything.
Would that be a bannable offense? Would that be enough misinformation? Like we knew it was false.
I can answer that.
Can you answer it without doing
Yes,
one
yes,
about it?
yes. The simple answer is no, that's not a bannable offense because we just saw that with the COVID jab.
Well,
Wait,
no, but
hold on,
Justin's
no.
hypothetical assumes that.
Which is good.
No, the COVID jab killed people.
Wait, really quickly.
I want to know I want to know why you think that's analogous. Wait, what?
Let me see your backstory, Jingles.
But you also didn't. You didn't
I gotta tell you guys,
actually
very
Oh
answer.
yeah.
Very
If that was the case, everyone who promoted it, like.
Go to the vax to what? Did the
I
vax
have it
kill
in
people?
my-
We had
Oh, I think the vax
everybody
killed people?
pushing
We can't say certain
everybody.
things
You don't even have to.
This is
argue
why
that,
we need
right?
moderation.
Oh wait, no, it has.
You
my
don't
full
even have to
name on
argue
it.
that, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Jackson, you didn't really answer the hypothetical as
I'll send
posed,
you
right?
more
Because you
detail
can't
when
say that, well, no, in your hypothetical, the medicine that you're talking about actually doesn't work, and the medicine that's being advertised by this hypothetical account does work, because Justin's hypothetical just assumes, right, that the medicine being advertised doesn't work and that the one he's talking about does work. Right? You can't just change the parameters of a hypothetical in order
Maybe
to
I
answer it.
misunderstood.
My first.
No, you were waiting for like the whataboutism
The
to
booster
answer. Would
works.
answer the question.
Well, it's true. All these people knew the truth about the jab.
So
and
no,
they
can you
promoted
answer
it.
the
The
hypothetical?
jab works, my dude.
Can you answer the? All right. Can you answer the hypothetical? Jackson, can you grow a
It's
spine?
incredible that people still think-
Jackson, can you grow a
You
spine and
support
answer the
city
hypothetical?
people.
Is that a bannable offense? Someone's
That's
convincing
surprising.
someone not to take medicine and selling snake oil that objectively doesn't work.
Well, that- okay,
We have
that's-
magical knowledge. We know.
Calm down. That's false advertising,
I
right?
can't tell
You
you
can't do it.
guys.
No, that's false advertising. So that would be, you'd not only be banned potentially, but you could be held criminally responsible for false advertising.
Okay, cool. So we can ban them from social media before that happens.
Well, I mean, do you cut someone's tongue off when they violate a crime? Can they no longer speak?
I'm sorry. Can we ban them off social media?
No, I don't think you should be banned from social media.
Okay.
Well, it's
How did
just
that
like
answer?
before all these fact checkers, like we survived on the internet for quite a long time. It's just, I don't understand why everybody wants daddy government or daddy big tech to tell us what's true or not when we have our own brains to do that.
I can agree with you. I don't think that there should be, I see like a rise in governments trying to have their hand in
Right.
social media and stuff like that. And so I can definitely see something problematic happening there. I mean, we can even look at like authoritarian countries where we see, problematic things happening. Yeah, I don't know. I think as much as I I'm pretty close to being a free speech absolutist, I still don't feel comfortable myself, imposing that on a company.
I have a hypothetical. Do you think people that say Michelle Obama is a boy should be censored from the internet?
No.
That should be allowed.
Well,
What about you, Jangles? That should be okay.
Yes, fine. Jokes.
Stardust, why do you think so are you of the position, I'm not sure if I understood you correctly, are you of the position that you value free speech, but companies shouldn't be forced to abide by free speech?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Yeah, no, I know that I value it. I don't know the answer for we should be holding companies to those standards. If somebody came into my cake shop and started saying crazy stuff, like claiming that like I'm an FBI agent that descended from the sky or something, I'd probably kick them out. I'd be alarmed,
You
right?
guys make a penis cake?
Maybe I'd
Or
think
like
about
a
it.
bachelor party or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the way I kind of come at this question is like, I hear a lot of people say that like free speech is valuable on a legal level, but not so much when it comes to like social media platforms. I think that's a bit myopic. I think like, I mean, for one, right, the debate about freedom of speech, it's always encompassed, you know, more than just legal action, right? You know, read like any of the classic texts on free speech, like John Stuart Mill or David Lewis. The case for free speech has always been applied to not only government, but also like norms and social institutions and so on. And it's pretty obvious to see like why that would be, right? I mean, imagine you lived in like a Christian, imagine you're like an atheist and you lived in a Christian society, and anytime you tried to like organize at a university to give a speech in defense of atheism, they took you off, people protested so that you couldn't give your speech. Every time you tried to organize on your own, people showed up with air horns. And then if you posted to Twitter in defense of atheism, you'd get banned by the Christian CEO of Twitter. Would you in that case really have like the freedom to question the religious orthodoxy? Probably not, at least not in any sense that matters. Because what we're concerned about when we're talking about freedom of speech is, powerful people being able to control or suppress speech. And there are many forms of suppression and forms of control, and the government, I think, is just one of them. But it's obvious that non-government actors can also wield that kind of problematic control.
Yeah, speech can also be used in a way to harass people, right? So if somebody's like following you around online or following you around in person and hurling obscenities at you, at a certain point, well, yeah, you have freedom of speech, but also you're kind of hindering my ability to like live a normal life. So
I think my biggest problem in any sort of free speech debates is that free speech is important. All of us think it's important. Some may disagree that I think it's important, but I absolutely do, because speech has power. Words have power. That's why it's important. That's why it ought to be protected. But anytime we talk about the negatives of speech, now all of a sudden it's just words. It doesn't matter. We'll leave it out there. So words have power. They do. That's why they're worth protecting. And so there needs to be some sort of system. Like, Twitter is not the public square, all right? You can go to the public square if you really want to.
It's a digital new age.
You can go.
It's the only place. Well, the only reason I argue that it's the only place where something can organically go viral, or you can even talk to a celebrity that has.
You say organic, but no.
There's no other platform where I can interact with Elon Musk. But now people that are just a Joe Blow can have Elon Musk talk to them.
But prior to Twitter,
the quote unquote digital town hall, town square, whatever.
Prior to Twitter, prior to social media, this seems.
I don't know if they aim for that, but
this seems to be some new definition of free speech that exists for social media.
You just can't do it.
Okay, but here's the thing: if Twitter didn't aim to be the public square, then is it really fair for us to force them to be the public square?
Let me tell you something. Life is not fair. That's the first thing you loony liberals need to learn. That is, life is not fair.
Life isn't fair. Sometimes you lose your account.
Anything.
I thought
as bad as things are, look in the mirror, because I can show you somebody that's way worse off. So
look, I know I look like Danny DeVito. Why do you have to comment on my looks?
Big Twitter.
Unbelievable.
Oh, they didn't want to be this company. Big bad Twitter, the $1 billion company. Wow, me. I'm sick of these multinational corporations actually using you as like political collateral. They don't give a crap about you. They would deplatform you in 2 seconds. You're like, oh, I feel so bad for Twitter. They didn't mean to be the town square.
I don't feel bad for
them. They are the town square. That's the harsh reality.
Well,
Too bad.
Here's
Take
the thing.
your
I do not feel bad for Twitter. I'm just saying that I think, like just because we view them as the town square doesn't mean that that was their goal. And if that isn't their goal, then they're obviously going to do things that are going to achieve their goals that are, obviously in contrast to that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, so imagine, so I feel like the way I kind of think about this is like, even if Twitter didn't intend to become the public square, like if they at some point do become the public square, it's more important to make sure that they actually act as a public square than it is to like, satisfy the desires and the preferences of the billionaires who own Twitter. Like, I mean, like let's say we had like a food company And the food company originally just wanted to be like a backdoor food vendor, not too big or whatever. But the food company eventually became more and more monopolized, and eventually it was like the only provider of food in the entire country. And then they were like gouging prices, and they were making it so that a lot of people couldn't buy food or they had to overpay for it. And then we said, okay, enough is enough. We should bring this under public control and make food cheaper. And then we were like, well, they didn't want to be the only food vendor in the country. It's like, yeah, but you know,
Yeah, but
they
Twitter
kind of
is-
are, so we kind of need
Twitter
to treat
isn't
them
the
like that.
only. Twitter isn't the only social media.
Yeah,
Sure, but it's by far there is
Sure,
like
it's the biggest one, but I still don't think that's a justification.
Yeah, I'm wondering about this new definition of free speech that seems to exist purely invented for social media. You can post whatever you want. You're not going to be arrested by the government for spreading misinformation to your friends. You can misgender somebody as much as you want on Parler or Truth Social or Gab. You can spread information about ivermectin and how it cures what ails you. You can say that Trump was the actual winner of the 2020 election. You can do all those things on these other social media sites. So why is it now, actually it's free speech, I get to post it on this one, the one that I want to, because that's the one that lets me have the most things that I want. And not actually, like, I'm not being banned from saying anything, I just don't have the reach that I want. How is that compatible with the definition of free speech that wasn't purely invented thanks to social media?
You just said it. It's about the reach. It's about the fact that these are where people go to talk about things.
Freedom of speech was never about reach. It was never a guarantee that everyone could
But if
hear.
93% of people are getting their news from one institution in the country, and you're not allowed to speak freely there, don't you think that that's a problem for society?
So you want to compel them to make them.
Yes, I would like to
What if nobody's
nationalize Twitter.
interested?
I would like to nationalize Twitter.
You want the government
I
to step
agree
in.
with
Yes,
Jackson.
I'd love.
No.
I'm a communist, so I'd love to nationalize Twitter,
Oh.
guarantee free speech rights for every user of Twitter, and also there's limitations to free speech, right? So you have to protect people. You have like libel, slander laws. You have false advertising. You have other things that you have to protect people about. But guarantee all of that to every user of Twitter.
You know what? Ironically, if the government was running something, they would have to abide by the First Amendment. So I mean, yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's a solution if that's if that's what you want. But yeah, I mean, I kind of always valued free speech as like the ability to like gather with people and say what you want to them and not get arrested for it, right? So yeah, reach never. That was a good point by Justin. I never really factored reach into that definition.
Well, that's the X factor.
Well, I mean, I feel like reach has to be in some respect important, right? I mean, if the government issued a statement like, "Listen, you can say that, you can say certain things that the government disagrees with, but you can only do it inside of your house." You could even
Right.
gather with people inside of your house and tell that to them, but probably that would be bad, right?
Right.
That'd probably be bad for freedom of speech.
Right.
Yeah.
Just for
Common
record, would anybody defend the banning of Andrew Tate or Sneeko?
No.
Nobody on the panel. That's all right.
And Jangles is insane.
All right.
I'm the insane one.
Will that be
You
your
will
next
never-
rap? Hold on, will that be your next rap?
It is insane for the Ukraine. Gas prices way too high. Vladimir Putin needs to die.
Keep going, finish it. Finish it and work in the Jangles parts. Come on, spit those bars.
Jangles got the gas. Him and his husband are built to last. They kiss every night. They both are white, but their adopted children are Filipino, drinking cappuccino. How low can you go? Jackson is sniffing the blow. Stardust, eating pizza, but not the crust. Don't waste that. That part is the best. And
I eat all of it.
Melody Mack is always passing the test. And on prime time, on the grind, while Jangle Dangle, his big thing for his husband's wedding ring. I'm a pimp on a plane. And my nuts like to hang. Jangle, 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 that's for you.
I guess we'll move on to the next round. This one is on whether or not,
What do you do?
you touched on this, Jackson, you touched on this, whether or not YouTube's stance on Russia and Ukraine is fair. Anybody had anything they wanted to add to that?
I think we kind of covered that a bit, yeah.
A little about Russia and
Yeah.
Ukraine, but not that much. But like one 30-second answer each, maybe. No.
Or
Just
is
people.
Twitch overly restrictive?
See, I'm not even on Twitch, but I think
Wait,
they are.
Twitch overly restricted?
Yes.
I think Twitch, yeah, I do think so. But I also think there's an actual issue. Again, this goes back to what I was saying. There's an actual issue where people are using deplatforming as a weapon against people that they have
Right.
petty personal griefs with, and it's super lame.
Right.
Does anyone know why Destiny was banned?
No, he should not have been banned.
Yeah, I wanted to say this to everyone who really, really wanted Destiny banned, and of course the people who didn't want it banned. Wouldn't it be great if you knew why at the very least?
Yeah.
I know why I was banned. I got banned because I said that there were U.S.-run biolabs in Ukraine, and then Victoria Nuland came out and admitted it 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was a big
wow.
thing. They
Why?
shut down everybody for that immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless there are any other thoughts, we can go to the Q&A. Sean?
Okay, so like some of you try to make the delineation between government and these social media companies and their actions on speech, but the expansive definition of Section 230 comes from a 2015 lawsuit where Facebook, on behalf of the Indian government, which was a Hindu nationalist government, banned a Sikh group from their platform because they were considered not in line with the government of India. And this is where they won the lawsuit in order to have this expansive definition. Is that a ban that you're in favor of being able to be done, even though it's clearly directed by the government, and thus gave us the justification for this broad private companies can do whatever they want under 230?
So to respond to you, I think, I agree. I don't like the idea of governments, having more and more hands in these social media things, right? And I definitely think that, but so it's hard because it's like I don't agree with these governments trying to enforce these things on social media, but also at the same time, is the average person really somebody who should be enforcing things on social media either? I don't know. It comes down to bottom line, right?
It's a strange problem that we've run into is that we have most conservatives and probably most liberals as well don't want the government stepping in and telling individual companies what to do, but also the government has to run Twitter, it has to run social media in order for the First Amendment to actually apply legally.
Well, that's not what I'm arguing for. Section 230 was to protect the platforms from the comments of people on those platforms, right?
Yeah.
And there was carve-outs for what these social media companies could do. For most of the history of Section 230, that was related to porn and adult content. It's worded 15 different ways in Section 230. However, when a nationalist government banned a religious minority in India, this was challenged. It went to the Ninth Circuit Court, and this is where we got the expansive definition of Section 230. So, you're supporting a precedent that was set when a nationalist government.
I don't think I support that. I don't think I support that. No, I don't. I think, again, I think that these companies should be able to run, without governments kind of forcing their hand and stuff like that. But I'm not, I think these companies and these websites should be protected because what's posted on their site isn't really at the end of the day their responsibility. They shouldn't be prosecuted for it. But at the same time, that's different from advertisers, whether they choose to advertise or the company itself choosing whether they want a certain image, I guess, right? It's a little bit different, so.
And finally, Alex Bernson, and I'll wrap up after this, a doctor that was banned off of Twitter, sued Twitter and got discovery against Twitter. He found out that officials from within the Biden administration were asking for his ban. So, I don't understand why we're pretending that this isn't coordinating with the government to
Right.
make certain political ideologies.
I don't know too much about
I
that
think the
particular-
difference is if you nationalize an institution like Twitter, they're at least supposed to act within the confines of First Amendment law. Whether they do that is a much bigger question, and they'd probably just deem anyone they don't like a terrorist or something. But when it comes to a private institution, all you have to do is apply public pressure on the private institution, and you can make a decision to ban someone like that without any sort of reprisal of a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of that decision. And it's not just Alex Berenson. We learned from an Intercept article about 2 weeks ago that the government literally has portals built into all these social media websites where if you have a .gov email address in a certain government department, like the State Department, for example, you can just go in, log in, and recommend that Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Meta, whatever, ban a given individual. It's not that they'll do it, but I mean, I think nationalizing would solve some of those problems potentially.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, you know, if you're like, you know, there's a reason if you're a teacher at like a Christian private school, you can get fired for believing in evolution. But if you're like a public school teacher, you can have some really offensive views, and if they try to fire you, they'll get sued for it. It's because they have to abide by the First Amendment. So ironically, it seems as though the government is more able to get people banned if they don't own it than if they do, because if they don't own it, they don't have to abide by the First Amendment in their decisions.
Can I just make a quick announcement? My mom just texted me and said that I should move away from the drunk guy on my left. I just thought you should know.
I don't even drink.
She just texted me. She's watching this live.
Mom, it's primetime 99. I don't even drink. Don't worry, Stardust is in very good hands. She knows I'm a pimp on a blimp. A lot of moms are
She's
worried.
going to be very
When
uncomfortable.
kids get around me, women, you know, they fall for my, overwhelming aroma. Don't worry.
Fucking creep.
Hi, so this question is in 2 parts. First, I wanted to know if you guys would agree that there is a kind of speech that can cause violence. There is speech that is so corrosive it can cause hate, which can cause violence. And 2, should social media companies be forced to platform that speech against their will?
First one has a very easy yes answer.
Yeah.
And the second one has a very easy no answer. I'd love to hear some disagreement.
No, I think I agree with Justin.
I mean, is it impossible for word? I mean, I don't think any word is necessarily violent, but I mean, I guess words can be put in a combination to trick or convince somebody to do something, maybe even out of their will, thinking that they're doing something for good. You know, so yeah, I mean, can you say words and convince somebody to do something? Is that possible? Yeah. Yeah,
and there's a meaningful distinction between words that cause violence and words that like incite violence, right? Like if I told you. If I, like let's say we're friends and I come up to you and I'm like, hey, John is sleeping with your wife, go kill him, you should go kill him, right? That would be an incitement of violence. Mm-hmm. But if I just came up to you and said, hey, John is sleeping with your wife, I thought you should probably know that, and then you went and killed John, both have that same causal relation between your speech and John killing the guy, or John getting killed, but they're very different things, and I think they should be treated differently.
That's fair.
Right. Yeah.
And legally already, we have the distinction of direct threats of violence. That's not protected by First Amendment law. So something that could, like whatever you said, that could lead to violence, I think that they should be forced to keep that up.
But saying that you would take ivermectin is not violence.
Right.
But saying that, like, for example, Boston's Children's Hospital is chopping the dicks off of children and you should go bomb them.
Yeah. No, not go bomb them.
And you should go bomb them.
Who says that? Nobody says that that's okay to say that. Nobody on the right.
Okay,
nobody,
look, if somebody told me...
Anywhere
I'm saying there's a difference. What's the meaningful difference between that and maybe someone should do something about it?
I think,
It's tough. It's tough to draw that line. I
agree
those two things are different.
Somebody should do something and blow it up with the bomb, but...
Well, but even saying somebody should do something about this is kind of like a call to action, right? If I started saying, Alex Stein, he kills puppies every day, and he goes into the backyard and he stomps on them. Somebody should do something about it, you know?
I will not stand by that. I rescue animals. But, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. Argument over.
Okay. With the rise of Bitcoin and eventually CBDC in the distant future, when or if you think we'll see America impose real financial censorship on social media? For now, it's like you're platform, okay. But do you think there will come a time in the next 1, 5, 10 years that, as we see in a large Asian nation, your real bank account will be
like Kanye West at JP Morgan Chase?
Yeah.
Nick Fuentes as well. They're already doing that.
Yeah.
I got my PayPal and Venmo permanently taken away as well. So they're already trying to go after that stuff. And in the cases of the most extreme examples, again, like Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, and Kanye, they already are doing that.
Mm-hmm. They took all my Kohl's cash.
All your
All
what?
your Subway gift
Cold
cards.
All my V-Bucks are gone.
They take your polls cash? That's sacred.
I know. Flannel, cool guy.
So Jake was actually asked this question earlier, and I thought it was a good question, but I kind of want to just do a little bit of a rephrase on it. He asked, essentially, my understanding was, if a snake oil salesman is trying to sell you poison, you ban that guy. My follow-up to that is, the current president of the United States said, and I quote, if you take these vaccinations, you won't get COVID.
Yep.
Should we have banned the 46th president of the United States because it put at-risk people possibly getting the COVID jab, feeling safe, and then going to a nightclub and dying?
Was there a little bit more to what he said than that?
No.
No.
Yeah, a little bit more to it than
He
that.
did. He said it clearly. Very
it's
clear.
clear, but okay.
Yep.
So, okay, I would say that getting these vaccinations doesn't mean you won't get COVID, right? It means that your likelihood of getting it is reduced. And I again, you know, if he said that, then he shouldn't have said that. I'll agree with you on that. If he said that, oh, you definitely won't get COVID if you get these vaccinations, he shouldn't have said that. Should he have been banned for it though? I don't know. I feel like the other president, former president, has also said a whole bunch of stuff that he never got banned for, though he did get banned eventually. But yeah, I don't know. So
YouTube actually has that policy on the books.
bless.
Excuse
There's
me.
like 9 masks behind you. You could have used those.
Bless you.
It's okay. You didn't know I have monkeypox. Go
YouTube
ahead.
has that policy already. They say, YouTube says that if you claim that the jab will completely stop infection, then that's a strikeable offense. Despite the fact that that's the case, Rachel Maddow still has a clip up on MSNBC's YouTube channel in which she says that exact thing, yet they haven't taken the video down, nor have they given them a strike because it's mainstream media.
Okay,
I just want to make this
What do you
point.
want? Enforce TOS?
Well, I made it earlier. I just want to say this. Like, first of all, the vaccine and what Donald Trump did with Operation Warp Speed was the greatest thing any human being has ever done, getting a vaccine out that fast. So we do have to credit him.
Yeah, I mean, credit to him for doing that and helping us get that
But
vaccine
I
out.
want to make one
you know.
point, though, is, there's one thing, and they make it clear, and I tend to agree with it, and I said it earlier, that the vaccine is safe and effective, and of course it is. For all, I think they just announced just last week, now there's 8 billion people here on Earth. But you know what is not safe and effective for 8 billion people? Peanuts, almonds, shellfish, shrimp, garlic. People have allergies.
Yeah.
But not to the vaccine. So thank you, Donald Trump, for making the only thing that nobody's allergic to in the world. Thank you, Donald Trump.
Yes, Michael.
What is your opinion on the recent Kanye West controversy and the way it was handled?
He should be deplatformed. I hope they throw all of his shoes in the trash.
I think he should be able to speak his mind, and I haven't really dived super deep into everything that he said, so I can't sit here and say I will agree with this or that, but I do think that he should be able to have a platform to speak his mind, and unless he is actually calling for violence, then he should be able to speak.
He does have a platform. Should he have a specific platform?
I mean, like I said, I don't know exactly why he was banned or what all,
I'm going to go
what specific,
DEFCON 3 on Jews.
but like I said, I don't know what was exactly said or what wasn't. But I mean, if he broke
pineapple juice. What did he say?
Very funny joke.
I haven't read Twitter TOS pretty carefully. I'm pretty sure going DEFCON 3 on Jews isn't allowed.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, I would say, Kanye's kind of had erratic behavior for a while. He was talking about Pete Davidson, like killing him, alluding to killing him or something like that. He was harassing Kim at some point. So he already had some pretty sus behavior. I think a little sussy, yeah. But we forgave him for all of it. I don't know why, but when it comes to the stuff that he said about Jews, like he's basically said that Jews exploit black artists for financial gain, and he's also insinuated that Jews promote harmful and immoral behaviors, which I think that secondary one is even more harmful. If you're saying that Jewish people specifically promote harmful and immoral behaviors, like saying that they put information, they put in our music, they put toxicity in our music. You know,
Okay,
there's,
but
yeah.
my question is was he saying Jews as a whole in this, or was he speaking of particular people who just so happen to be Jews?
I think he talks about like Jewish record label owners. For sure.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
when you talk
I think
about
it's-
individual people, you
But
name
I don't know
individual
why
people.
we would
You
bring
don't
up the
say
Jewish part.
Jews.
Why don't we just say record label
Right,
owners,
and
right?
I think that's fair. He doesn't have to mention that specific detail about that, but I'm just saying though, if what he said wasn't directed at Jews as a whole, and he may just be trying to call out specific people,
But it was
I
directed
think
at
he
Jews.
could have tactfully done that in a better way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just saying I don't know exactly what was
The
said there.
thing
So
is-
I don't think we would accept that sort of reasoning in most cases, right? If I said, wow, black people commit so much crime, and then you were like, that's racist, and I was like, well, no, I know these specific 5 black people, and they committed a bunch of crime, and that's who I was referring to. Like, I think when people make statements where the only thing they mention about the people engaging in the activity in question is those people's race, I think
Right.
it's pretty reasonable to take away that it's a racially charged or generalized statement.
Can of worms.
That's true though.
Well,
Why can you say certain stuff like that though? Like why? I don't say that, but there's a lot of people who that they make that like their fundamental, one of their fundamental like points of arguments in their content is talking about black people and crime. I like to talk about how the British are a fucked country and they're satanic and they're ruining the world. Why can I talk poorly about the British? Why can certain people talk poorly about black people or in their view statistically? But Kanye can't say that about.
Well, because he's
I'm not saying
attributing, he's taking a group of like album, like record label owners who happen to be Jewish, and he is ascribing that to Jewish people.
I attribute most of the pain in the world to the British.
I mean, it seems
I don't
like both,
attribute it to British today.
both Nuance
I do.
Rose comment and some of the other comments just seem to rely on like a lack of ability to delineate like, okay, what is somebody literally saying? Like, what are the literal truth conditions of what someone's saying? Versus like, what are they implying and what attitudes are they sort of expressing and like unveiling? What can we learn about someone's psychology from not only what they say, but the way that they say it?
I mean, okay, so there's this one quote from Kanye in particular. It's genocide and population control that black people are in today in America that is promoted by the music and the media that black people make that Jewish record labels get paid off of. I feel like that's an insinuation that's pretty harmful.
Okay,
but-
same thing. British people are genociding the global south and they're exploiting their resources and they're making money off
I don't
of
think
it.
they're doing that currently
They
today.
are, of course they are. Of course they are. That's facts. So why can you say that? But you can, and then you're getting into the nitty gritty of, oh, how did he say we're going to ban him based on his tone? Like, that's just insane.
Okay, but
I didn't
where
say he
you're
should be
talking
banned
about it
based
even-
on his
even-
tone. I was
even
talking
with
about
that,
what his tone tells us about what attitudes he holds. I don't think he should have been banned.
And even
I think that the handling of the
Okay,
Kanye,
that's good. I like that.
I don't think that the handling of the Kanye West situation has
just
been
one
cool.
point.
I feel like it's been us making a massive spectacle about like a mentally ill person having
Yeah, I
a
do
mental
feel-
breakdown.
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I don't think he should have been banned.
Well, yeah, again, I'm somebody who values like there being that space online for anybody to say whatever.
You don't.
I do, I do.
This whole time you've been up here talking about how we should censor people, misinformation, whatnot. You
I
don't
don't.
value
No,
that space.
I value that space to
You value
exist
people on like some
independently.
app that no one uses, which means you don't value it on the internet.
Independently. I mean, like, look, man, everybody uses
No,
Discord
you can't
nowadays.
have your cake and eat it too.
And you
You're
can
saying
say
that,
whatever
I
you
value
want on
free speech,
Discord.
but then the whole
So-
argument you're putting forward is about how you want to censor people.
No, I don't want to censor people.
You
I
do.
specifically, did I not specifically bring up that I have a huge problem with people using deplatforming as a weapon against each other? I specifically brought that up.
Okay.
I do
You don't want it to
value.
be used maliciously, but if people
no, but
say things
even
that are wrong, you
here,
want them
here's
to
the
be
thing.
banned.
I can value that and think that I want there to be a space for freedom of speech. I just don't know that me myself has any justification to enforce that on a larger company.
Well, Kanye bought another social media company. He can say a bunch of shit.
It's like if I walked into a store, it's
So
like if
what's the problem?
it's like if
Well,
I
you can't
walked.
say it on the biggest one.
There's some
Okay,
things
but
you
if I-
can't say.
if I walked into a store, right? If I walked into a store and the store owner was like, "Hey, you can't wear that shirt with all those obscenities on it," and I was like, "Yeah, well, I should be able to, or whatever." Well, technically, at the end of the day, it's their store. They can choose to kick me out if they want.
But companies aren't liable for what people post.
They are to their advertisers.
Yeah. And they may want to portray a certain type of brand, but it's like, again, Discord is used by everybody now. You can say whatever you want on Discord, so I mean, there's a space there for that,
Discord?
Yeah.
I do not say whatever you want.
Okay, you can make
I've
whatever
heard
jokes
you
you want on
can't.
Discord. Trust me,
Well, what jokes do you make?
I've tried them out. No.
Wow.
So we kind of drill down on financial censorship. We have individuals like Kanye, individuals like Alex Jones, Jackson yourself, other individuals like Ryan Dawson, for example. Lots of individuals are being pushed out of the sphere of being able to interact with society at the level of certain utilities. And when you juxtapose this to an issue like free speech, for example, you see that kind of illustrated simply. Racists are allowed to go to the bus, to have the ability to access the electric grid. At what point does the discussion of free speech stop, and at what point do we start getting into this larger discussion of these rights that are protected under, for example, the protection afforded to people in their ability to access utilities?
Those are some pretty different examples. Alex Jones wasn't censored. He broke the law and was sued in a United States court for it. That's a little bit different than being censored. In fact,
It's not.
He's still saying all of the things that he wants, but he broke the law.
If you commit libel, are you still allowed to run for political office? Are you allowed to go on YouTube and start a YouTube channel? Or are you still allowed to do whatever
he
you
still
want?
has his website. He's still saying everything.
But he's censored from the internet.
Okay,
He's
I'll
censored
say.
from the internet? Then why does he get millions of views? Where do they come from? They show up at his house? What?
Censored from almost every single. He had to
Almost.
create his own institution.
I will
And he
say.
could do that because we still have free speech. Nothing has been broken.
We
He
do
can
not
make his
have
own
free speech.
website, and he brought his audience with him.
I will say that I don't think Kanye should have had his financial things taken away from him.
Right.
I understand the reasoning why somebody may have looked at what he was saying and been like, "Ooh, that's like a bit weird." But yeah, I don't think he should have had his finances messed with like that. But at the same time, there are on a very base level, there are social repercussions for acting like a jerk, right? So
I know.
yeah.
What's your name?
Yeah,
Jingles?
good God.
Justin, I pray to God you never have more than 2 brain cells to rub together, so you challenge the establishment, because you will face rigorous censorship, and when you do, you're going to be kicking yourself at all the things that you said today.
I'm sure that I will.
Okay.
I love
Okay,
that.
I can't stop myself.
You two need to be sitting closer. The energy is
Yeah,
good
I know.
now.
This is a sexual tension. I can't,
No, it's
I don't
not
want to be in the
that.
middle of
He's
it.
in a loving relationship with his husband, so he wouldn't be having
Sorry.
sexual attraction to another
Didn't
man.
mean to imply.
It's a monogamous marriage, correct?
Mhm.
Jingles, it is monogamous.
Yep.
Sometimes you want to stray, but
Not all of us are doing the
Pimp on a blimp.
weird streamer stuff that every streamer seems to be doing.
What is
so.
that?
Every streamer is like, oh yeah, I'm in an open relationship now. So.
I don't know any of these streamers that do that.
Wait,
I've
no, I'm
never
not,
heard of
not. I'm not talking about anybody specific. There's like 5 streamers that are all in open relationships. Like, good for them,
Yeah.
But
Is DSP in the open relationship?
I do love the insinuation that if I grew a 3rd brain cell, then I don't know. I guess I'm going to start denying entire massacres of children. I'm that close to doing it. If I just
You
get a
for
few
sure
more
were one of
followers.
those people that were like, it was a Russian missile in Poland. It was.
Sure, you were.
Actually,
you're wearing a
Doug,
tan suit.
That happened like
Your
a week ago, and I
opinion
wasn't.
isn't valid.
Whale dust. Jill.
What?
Yeah, whale dust. Yeah, you wish you could be as fat as me. You wish.
Wait, they call
Listen,
you whale dust?
But the thing is,
Haas came up with it one day or something.
Unless we have an in-person question, I have one from online.
I think Haas is just jealous of my arms.
This
He
one
wishes
coming
his
in,
arms were as girthy as
They
mine.
had asked, and you might be able to make better sense of this than I can. They say, how did those on the panel who claim that TOS bans equal censorship when association rights equal speech via Constitution
Talking to yourself?
states a person,
Good God,
group, or corporation have a right to associate or disassociate from you, hence not platform you?
This guy was talking to himself the entire time, so I didn't hear any of that. I'm so sorry.
I think that they're saying if the Constitution says that you can separate yourself from anybody, you can dissociate, then how do those on the panel claim that TOS bans are an infringement on free speech?
Has anybody claimed, so I know I have, and I think probably the people I was, supposed to be in opposition with have also said that tech companies censoring people violates free speech in like a moral sense, right? Like we all have a moral right to free speech, and when big tech companies start censoring people to the extent that they have, that sort of wrongly infringes on this moral right we have to free speech. I don't know if anybody's claimed that it actually infringes on our legal right to free speech in the terms laid out by the Constitution. I think that would be a pretty radical claim to say that Twitter banning Andrew Tate or something actually violates like the Constitution or infringes on free speech.
I believe in the case of Alex Berenson, that was a legal infringement, right? Didn't he get his account reinstated because of his legal challenge? Yeah. Was it to Twitter, right? Yeah.
Sure, but the guy asking the question said to people who think that Twitter enforcing TOS is like a free speech. So sure, maybe there are specific cases, but if the idea that the person who asked the question was getting at is he was attacking the view that sort of legal free speech in the constitutional sense and also like Twitter guideline enforcements are sort of like the same thing, right? Or that one violation of one always violates the other.
I think Alex's case proves that if you have enough money and time to challenge one of the largest social media companies in the world, which 99.99% of people don't, you're going up against not only Twitter or YouTube. YouTube's worth like 10 times more than Twitter. You're also going up against like the CIA, the State Department, the NSA, the Pentagon, all these institutions that are backing the banning of individuals who are calling out, war crimes or whatever. Most people don't have the time or money to go up against these institutions. So when I get permanently demonetized, I just say, whatever. I don't have Alan Dershowitz on my hotline call to say, come help me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree that in most cases where people get deplatformed by a big tech company, they probably don't have the recourse to retaliate. Yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of already agreed that really actually sucks. I'm not memeing. I'm not like that actually does fucking suck when you built a living off of a social media platform, and then all of a sudden they take it away from you. But at the same time, hold on. But at the same time, remember that double-edged sword.
Don't act sad for me, and then the rest of the time you're.
Do you remember that double-edged sword that I talked? The reason that you got that money in the first place is because YouTube provided a platform for you to use. You didn't build YouTube. You have no ownership of YouTube. They don't owe you anything other than you're going to make content and they're going to make money off of it. And that sucks. Again, that's that double-edged sword. So the solution you seem to have is don't force them legally to show the things, whatever I want to say, I get to say it and force them to do that. I don't see that as a reasonable solution.
I think the reasonable solution is nationalize them. And kick out each and every one of those fucks that was censoring all of us. I want them to be crying alone for the rest of their life.
Like you do, right?
Yeah, like I do.
Yeah.
Got time for maybe
Sorry.
one more question. Go ahead.
This question's for Jackson directly. I'm hoping that you can just don't deflect, just answer directly.
Wow.
Should Alex Jones be allowed to defame people and not pay a cent for it?
If it's legal.
You think it's legal to defame people?
If it's illegal what he's doing, then he shouldn't be allowed to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's not legal, right? So.
So let's say hypothetically we were to nationalize Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. These are all like government nationalized entities. Like, wouldn't that just be more into like the ideology that like the government's like controlling the narrative? Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so.
No.
Yep.
Well, the problem
I'm going to
is.
disagree.
so why would you want to nationalize that?
Well, because they already do it. So
the
now
point
it's
is
kind of
that
like,
the-
all right.
No, they don't.
Well,
No,
no.
they
don't.
The point is that
You had a good point
if the
there,
government,
Evans.
the point is that if the government took over Facebook, right, people could say they're controlling the narrative, but like legally they would not be allowed to, right? If like the government nationalizes social media and then they start trying to censor certain speech, that's a violation of the First Amendment. They will literally get sued for that and they will probably lose, right? So it's not like the government out of the goodness of their hearts just would never censor people. It's like they're just legally not allowed to.
It's more advantageous for the government right now to have the private-public partnership because they can still influence all these institutions, private institutions, without the potential of legal ramifications, you know? So they would prefer to be with the structure than have it nationalized.
What do you think about the idea, instead of a hostile takeover, the government taking over a business that it really, really wants? Why doesn't the government just make its own social media platform?
Well, the government has a long history of taking over, you know, private companies for ulterior motives, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. So
Yeah, but why not make it a pure good and just make their own?
Because
now they have all the
Twitter's
benefits
the
of
best one. That's what I like to use.
Nuance, bro, in the back. Nuance.
Do you think anybody should be deplatformed for calling a CNN journalist rat face and kind of yelling at them for a few seconds?
I think that's kind of funny, like calling somebody rat-faced, yeah.
Okay, well, that's why Alex Jones got banned.
Oh, well, I don't know, man. Alex Jones was saying that the Sandy Hook thing. Yeah, well, I mean, if that's why, if he got banned for that, obviously that's a stupid reason. Yeah. Yeah, like,
Oh, it shows
you know?
it was right.
What did I tell you about talking? Unbelievable.
I think with that, we'll wrap this down. I want to give you a huge round of
Don't do that. My mom's gonna freak out, okay?